there, welcome back to a new show. This is me returning to a bunch of videos rather than just the one-off I did last week with Doctor Strange. So I'll be doing more videos. This week there's 5 actually, but mostly it'll be a bit more random I think. I'm trying not to be structured. I always say that and end up being really structured usually, but I'm trying to avoid it and do a bit more as I feel it and not feel guilty about taking time off when I've run out of things to talk about. So I'm just trying to be a bit more casual. That's the aim. It may not succeed, but that's the aim, to be a bit more casual with these videos. I've got a backlog of stuff to talk about now, which is quite nice. I've other ones I really want to watch to talk about, so I have come back with a renewed passion for this. That was quite good. So the first film we're going to talk about is Tarkovsky's Stalker. Now, I've been watching quite a few Tarkovsky since I took a break. So I've watched Mirror as well. I've got some other ones that I might not. I mean, there's only 7 of them, so there's not. I mean, I can easily go through them. He's kind of like Malik in a way that he's an art house darling who only makes so many films. He was a guy who worked within the Soviet system for a very long time, and he had to deal with the Soviet censorship and their various ideas of what was good for the Russian people and what was bad for the Russian people. So when he made the films, he had the ability to get the best technicians in Russia, but they could just say he can't film that, and he would basically be stuck. So that was one of the big problem he had as an artist. He had to always get through the film commissions. In the West, it was much more a case of he could do what he wanted, but try to get the money, which is the kind of thing that most artists in the West have to deal with. I mean, Malik has to do it all the time. It's getting money. I think Malik deals with it by being low budget, like not having a mega budget for most of his productions and keeping it fairly simple. I mean, I think the biggest production Malik ever did was the Thin Red Line. I mean, I think that was the big one. The rest of them are much more modestly produced films. I mean, I think Days of Heaven at the time was quite expensive, but it was an art house film with a studio back. You know, studio making a lot of commercial films, and this was the art house one. But Tarkovsky had the backing of the Russian state for a very long time until he defected to the West at a certain point when he couldn't really get any film made, and it was just not working for him anymore. Because Tarkovsky was a filmmaker who had a religious bent to him, and of course communist Russia was atheist. Communist Russia was like, religion is the opiate of the masses. Religion blinds the masses from the reality of life, and it's something that should be utterly destroyed. And for Tarkovsky, the religious impulse was something that was very keenly felt with people, very keenly felt within life. An expression of that was key to humanity. So it's two kind of philosophies that are eventually going to smack up against each other pretty badly, and of course it ended with defection or just moving to the West. I mean, there's a lot of directors who are in Poland who just get told you can't make any films anymore because we don't like what you're doing with these films, and we know you're taking the mickey somehow, even though you've been all very surrealistic. The amazing thing about Tarkovsky is he got away with it for so long, because you look at his films now and there is a religious undertone throughout. Mirror has lots of elements there. You know, the Ivan's Childhood and Andrei Tarkovsky, you can just feel it in the films, even if he's not directly speaking about it. There is something there. And Stalker's kind of the greatest expression of that, even though it's also about doubt and it's also about lots of things. It's a film you can interpret in lots of ways. This is my favourite Tarkovsky film. It's one of my favourite films, really. So I'll probably ramble on, and you'll be thinking, what's he on about? What's going on? Because we're talking favourite films here, so there's a good chance I could be completely incoherent. There's a very good chance. So, you made me jump, you know. So, Stalker has actually a very simple premise. It's based on a novel by the Tarkovsky brothers. I butchered that pronunciation. The idea is basically something has landed on the Earth years ago, and whenever you go into this area, the laws of physics and anything else change. It's like an alien creature. It's kind of like a different variation on the colour out of space idea. That brought a colour down and never existed. This one is just an area which is called a zone, which has been cordoned off. You can't go in there. It's forbidden. And outside the zone, everything's in sepia tone. It's just this lifeless grey area. People are just left to rot, and be depressed and just find it horrible. But when you go in the zone is a much more. It's described as a much more magical place. But when you get actually into it, it's much more. It's just about your own paranoias and your own sense of. It's more nature. It's shot in colour, so it's kind of have that Wizard of Oz quality. But instead of Oz being this great, wonderful place, it's just a field and then a building, and it's what you bring to it which is important. And the point is you have to try and go through all these areas. And according to the Stalker, the title, who's a central character, the world changes the closer you get to this place called the Room. The Room is the place where you're trying to get to. The Room is the place where all your dreams can come true if you get to the Room, and if you go into the Room, your dreams can come true. So it is almost like trying to find God. I mean, it's a religious metaphor in one state. Another state is a really good sci-fi idea, is like this. What is this thing that goes against all our physics, all our sense of what the world is, what the reality is? So it's also a metaphor for madness and self-doubt and what are you ultimately? Because what is the thing that would make your dreams come true? And it's been pointed out during the film. If you get that, does that actually mean you'll be even less of a person because you realise what your actual dreams were pretty facile? And that's kind of the philosophical bent of the film, is basically what are we made of? How deep are we? No matter what we say, because you've got Stalker takes different people in. They pay for him to get them in and get them through the zone to the Room. That's what he's paid for. And he's just dealing with people all the time, and they're always essentially letting them down because they all think they're highfalutin members of society. They all think they're wonderful members. They're astonishingly smart people, they think. One's basically a physicist, another one's a writer. And the writer is really pompous, and the writer really thinks he knows what he's doing. And as you go on, you start to realise it's all an act. He feels he's written himself out, he's burnt out, and he doesn't even think the people who read his books really care that much. And he just thinks he's a sham. And then the physicist is trying to destroy the zone because he thinks it's an abomination that's actually stopping human beings. And we're obsessed, and so it's almost like the like science's hatred of religion. There's an element of science that does not like religion because religion is faith and not logic. Science likes logic. And of course the thing is, science by itself might not be enough for the human soul to keep going with, because it can be drab, it can make your life, you all these inventions, but you might not actually have faith, or you might not have a human connection. And of course, what religion is and faith is up to the person who holds it. It's not one thing. So that's you get the scientific element. I mean, Tarkovsky seems to have a bit very suspicious of science generally and where it leads. Much more than I am, personally. But it is interesting that this take in science is that they find this as an abomination, this idea of this magical place is an abomination. It could be dangerous, and it's like there is logical reasons for why they want to destroy it. But even when they get close to it, even the scientist loses faith in the ability of this bomb to do anything. And again, it's about his faith in his own ideals, and you find these two different characters with different faiths and ideals. No matter how strongly try and portray them, they're not. It's not really there. It's a facade. It's something. It's people trying to create a view of their place in the world that will get them through life because they don't know. Because life ultimately could be meaningless, and they don't understand. And this thing that suggests meaning but could take meaning away from you, because if this thing comes true, like you get what you wish for, it just shows you your limitations. It just shows you looking straight in the mirror and realising you're not as smart or as clever as you think you are, and all these facades you built up are meaningless. Which is something that human beings face all the time, this sense of, this is what I think I am. The reality is probably something very different. I mean, it's something we all face. And it's something that haunts a lot of people, is this idea that we're not quite what we think we are. We're not quite as smart and as clever. And you go online, people try to prove they're smart or clever and failing horribly. But it's something we all face. It's something you've seen throughout time, as people, pretentious people trying to prove themselves to be something they're not. And the zone is just like this sort of engulfing thing. It can be whatever you want it to be, and it becomes a metaphor for whatever you put in. It's a reflection of you, ultimately, because you don't know what it is. You don't really know what it is. So that's the philosophy version of Stalker. The filmmaker, wonderful thing about this film is it's just beautiful. It's one of those films that if I'm feeling burnt out by life, just feeling kind of rotten. Ironically, for what I've just said, this is the thing that can give. This is one of the films that brings me back. It's just I love just sitting back and watching this film. All the shots, all the depression as well. The shots are smooth and they're very soulful. And there's a sense of a decay outside this zone that's colourful, but see beautiful sepia tone scenes and all these depressed Russians, and Russians talking slow about philosophy is always very enjoyable for me. and then I'm going through the zone, and you find that the zone looks normal, but there's lots of weird traps in there, but you can't even see that they could really mess you up. And just the way the film does that, and the way the film builds. So for me, it's bizarre, a comfort blanket movie, even though as a film it's very deep. But just the filmmaking and just the sense of being through this landscape, I just find very entrancing. It's very entrancing, the same way 2001 is very entrancing, even though it's about the limitations of humanity and where we can go. 2001, this film feels very linked. I mean, they always link Solaris to 2001 because it came out at the same time, but Stalker's much more like 2001. It's much more about the same kind of limitations and how society kind of is formed by these things we're not quite sure if we're fully in control of. I mean, Stalker and 2001 are linked films in a way that Solaris I don't really think is linked to 2001. It's just linked because it's easy. It's not linked because there's actual ties. I think Tarkovsky says that Solaris was actually 2001, but I think this was an artist protesting a bit too much. Like, I don't think he quite got 2001, to be honest. So I mean, so Stalker really has that thing for me where I can just float through the film and just enjoy it. Just a piece of filmmaking, away from all the philosophies, but also the actual deep thing is, it's a story of people travelling. It's an odyssey of people travelling to get to the source of something that they want to find out themselves and find themselves lacking. It's a Heart of Darkness story, essentially. But, there's no the horror, it's just the mirror, really. And of course, Tarkovsky really made a film called Mirror. It's about this feeling of, what are you, and what does it do, what does life do to you? What do you do to yourself? And you get the Stalker himself, who is like an artist. He's abused by everybody. They all think he's a failure. His wife stands by him. His daughter's a mutant because he spends so much time in the zone. He keeps on saying he's never going to go back, but he always goes back because he's addicted to it. And the Stalkers are not allowed to take anything. They're not allowed to go into the room because one died once and he was dead a few days later. It's something like you're either a stalker, you're the man of God, essentially. You're kind of a priest for these flawed people. You know, or you're one of those people, you can't be both. And he's always let down by the people he brings in. He always feels this as a failure. And then when he comes back out, he's lacking because he's not in the zone. And the zone's the thing that brings him to life. But he manages to make do with his family and find human comfort. And his daughter is something from the zone almost. That she's like the next stage of something. You're not quite sure what it is. But again, it's like 2001 with the Star Trek. There's something sense of something moving forward. So Stalker is just a beautiful film. It's a wonderful science fiction film. It's a wonderful religious allegory. It's where religion and science meet in a film, which is very hard to do. A lot of people do it and they have lots of talk that don't mean anything. This one actually pulls it off, which is one of the reasons why I adore it. But it is it's a top 10 film for me. I could go into this film for hours and hours probably. So I'm going to stop here. This is me just trying to say, this is a very basic read of Stalker, but go see it. I managed to watch it on my projector, on the screen, and it was just beautiful. I'd seen it in the cinema before. I actually first saw it in the cinema, which makes it really hit for me, and rewatching it and projecting it really, it's something that even works on TV, but it works so much better on the projector or on the cinema screen. It's just the sense of the world around you. Even though you're meant to bring so much into yourself, like the people going into the zone, it's filmmaking, the slow camera shots are beautiful. You know, some of these shots last forever. I mean, when I went to see the cinema, I had to go to the toilet, and when I come back, the shot was still going on. That's where I left at. I know that because when I watched it again on Blu-ray, I noticed the shot was continuing going on. It was like, wow, I didn't even miss anything. I just did the continuous shot. And that's what's beautiful about it. You just sit back and watch it and just enjoy the shot. I mean, I can do that all day with certain directors. Just the way they shoot stuff is like, oh yes, I'm happy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I've inspired you to go and watch Stalker. Stalker is just, to me, just so good. So I'll be back soon with another video. I'll see you later.